non-graduates and just other members of HSA. It was just amazing.
Yeah, that's true. If you don't remind me, I would forget that we was in the same hat group. I knew that we was in the same, not hat group, but like in a meeting, in a small group, breakout section. But I did not remember that we were in the breakout section together with Ben. That's
Yes, the
awesome.
very first one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for reminding me that.
The
For
ways
some
we
reason.
remember each other, right?
Yeah. That's that I knew that we was in the same, kind of like breakdown group now and then. But yeah, that's amazing. You got a good memory there.
Well, you and Ben are very memorable. I mean, you guys were actually our only couple and then how do we not remember you guys with with Bella Luna as well? You guys, it was so cool to watch you guys go through that journey together, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow. Thank you so
the
much.
infamous couple.
Well, I feel like it's time to start, and let's start. So I will do the small introduction, like reading, and then we can start. Hi, hello, and welcome to WholebBeing Journey. I'm your host, Jasmine Oanh Pham, and I'm thrilled to have you joining us today. The show is dedicated to getting to know each other better as fellow graduates of the MA in Happiness Study program. After spending 18 months together in an online learning environment, we now have the opportunity to share our stories and experience more personally. I'm excited to introduce our wonderful guest today, Channell Brown. Channell is a remarkable woman whose journey has been shaped by her service in the Navy and dedication to well-being. Channell originally from Worcester, Massachusetts, joined the Navy in 2002 and has since served for 20 years, rising from an enlisted sailor to a commissioned human resource officer. As a mother of three daughters who are who are active in ballet, she balanced her professional and family life with resilience and positivity. Her family moved every 2 to 3 years, experiencing new cultures, but also facing the challenge of leaving behind communities. She emphasizes host person well-being through SPIRE, focusing on community, emotions, and self-permission. And at work, Channell is passionate about teaching well-being and preventing burnout. So we are thrilled to have Channell with us today to share her insight and experience. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Channell Brown to WholebBeing Journey. Thank you.
Wow,
Hello,
Jasmine,
Channell.
thank you so much. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. It's just an honor to be on this journey with everyone, and thank you so much for having me, Jasmine.
Thank you, Channell. It's so good to see you again. And I know we have a quick chat earlier, but I have a lot to to learn from you and to see where you start before you were with us, and then after you graduate the MA in Happiness program. So let's do a quick introduction about you. Like I learned uh of you and from you, but I feel like people would love to hear more from you. Just share with us more about yourself right now, and then your three wonderful little girl. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. Yeah, so as Jasmine explained, I think what makes me unique is that I am active duty Navy, an officer, been in 20, well, I'll actually hit 22 years this August. To me, I don't feel unique because obviously I've been in the Navy. This is what I've been doing for the last 22 years. I live and breathe Navy, every day. And so been around bases, but it is quite uncommon. I think there were three of us, three there. I was the active member, then we had a reservist in our group, and then we had Giovanni, who was a veteran. So and Brad was is in San Diego, and he's a reservist. So I think it's really cool. I think that happiness studies is something that needs to be taught in and out of the military, in the government, in the Senate, in our schools, in our homes, and I just think I'm a vessel to kind of bring that to the Navy specifically, and I'm really excited. Yep, as you mentioned, I am a mother of three. I've got a 13-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. They love everything ballet and glitter, so I'm constantly driving around to ballet. So that is one big thing. Every time we do move, we are trying to find challenging ballet studios. My daughter, my 13-year-old, is very talented on point. Everybody thinks she gets it from me, and I do not dance, so it is not. I do love arts though. And so just that community is huge, like you mentioned, Jasmine. I'm my maiden name is Frongillo, so I come from a very Italian background, born third generation Italian up in Massachusetts. And so family's always been really big, in community in my culture. And then so leaving, most of my family is still in Massachusetts, and then on my dad's side of the family, they're all in Vegas. So I kind of am the awkward one out of my family that kind of left home right after high school, and I kind of never have gone back other than to just visit. And so for my kids, it's very different than when we go home. They're like meeting hundreds, literally hundreds of cousins on both sides, whether we go to Las Vegas or we go to Massachusetts, and everyone's their cousin, but they're not used to that when we're, where we live in our homes. But we do believe in community, and it is hard every time we move, even though it's exciting to move and to experience new cultures. Even here in the States, every time we move, you can move to a different state in the US, and it is different. It's a different culture, and it's amazing, and I love the United States for that. But it's hard. It can be very challenging. This last time we moved recently was in January of this year, or December of this year. I started work at my new job January, and I was a little I guess cocky, I would say, or I thought like this was our 8th move. We call it in the Navy PCS, permanent change of station. And so I was like, I've got this. Like, I could pack up a house so easy. Logistically, I had it, but you can never plan what is going to happen every time you leave and every time you uproot from a community. And it is literally, you grieve. And I think for the first time ever, I've been in touch with my emotions from being part of this journey, and really learning that I really wasn't as in touch with them as I thought I was prior to this journey. And so I really allowed myself to grieve, and really allowed my children to grieve. And not the boo-hoo grief process, but yep, we're leaving friends, we're leaving everything we know, and we're going to be positive and flip the script and go to this new place. But instead of just telling them deal with it, we really did just talk it through this time. And it happened to be our most difficult move, our most challenging move. But I think we grew so much from it as well. And I think and usually it takes about a good year for us to really find community and really get. And this time, I want to say by April, we were locked in step. Again, it was very difficult. I'd say like up until March, and April was kind of that breaking point, but we really feel connected. And I really, give all the credit to this journey and this SPIRE elements, and just being more well of whole person well-being for myself and my family, and realizing what we're going through when we go through it. Yeah. So I think I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna stop,
Yeah,
Jess.
it's okay. You did a wonderful job by sharing with us, and would lead me to another question about happiness study, because you have been moving a lot, and you also have to change environment, and not just you, but your family, your three daughter. because I myself, I plan to travel as well with, my baby and, husband, and we will have more kids as well. So we will have a lot to learn from you. We need to learn from you actually. But before we go there, my next question would be, what led you to pursue the MA in happiness studies?
Oh,
Thank you.
what a wonderful question. And curiosity, intellectual curiosity is what led me there. And I still was not sure because we were the first, there was no one to ask. So it was just a leap for faith for I think every single one of us, right? Um, and it really wasn't until the first semester when we went through the intro class where I was like, and I want to say it was week 1 or probably week 2 lecture by Tal, and he went through, what SPIRE was. And that's when I knew I was in the right place, that I hadn't, that, I'm so happy that I trusted my gut and intuition. Because especially for me, for the military, one of our benefits is college being paid for. So the GI Bill would normally covered my bachelor's degree, so I assumed it would also cover my master's. And for me, because this program was so new, it hadn't been approved for that kind of government funding. So there came a point where I almost were, I think it was a couple weeks before it started, my tuition didn't go through because of that. And I remember talking to amazing Dawn Homer at Centenary, and she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, should I just wait a year or the next semester? And she's like, I don't think it will take more time. There's just such a demand for this. There's really no need, for Tal to seek that kind of certification to apply for that government assistance till. And I just prayed and meditated on it. I was like, no, I felt it. I felt a pulling. I felt a yearning. I wasn't sure what it was. And it was that second class. And I was like, yep, this is it. This is the most well spent. And I'm so glad that, it was a personal investment for me, and not something that was free after all, because I tell you, it really gave me kind of a pep in my step that I was finally doing something and investing in myself. And it was such a wise decision. And now, even with the talks about, a PhD program, same. I'm all in, hands down, ready to again invest in myself, just because I just feel that gut feeling. But when Tal first talked about SPIRE, you know, talking about that it's the shoot of a plant that breaks ground, right? And when he said it's breaking through the boundaries and limitations that hold us back so that our entire selves can flourish, that to me, that was my aha moment. That was my I'm in the right place at the right time. And even though I had no idea, we all had no idea what the next semester was going to look like, what the workload, and then that second semester was so challenging because it was just, there was a lot. We were in a master's programs with expectations and a lot of workload, and it was just, even though the workload was tough, it was the most rewarding experience every time I met with each of you, every time we met every week, every time I sat down to do an assignment. I had never felt so challenged and so blessed at the same time. They were like these forces, and I'm so happy I did it. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you did it as well. And I'm so glad that I can see. I don't know if Giovanni had talked to you about the project that Giovanni and Ben planned for XCO, but I feel like, we could be the right team. We obviously become a right team now.
Absolutely, Jasmine. Honestly, when it comes to anything with happiness studies, I am all in, hands down. And if there's anything I can do to spread this into the military, which I think, especially in the environment we're in, and caveat is I'm not speaking for the Navy. This is 100% all Channell. Just want to caveat that. But I think for us in the environment we're in, just in the military, in just the professional workplace, we talk about agile leadership. We talk about making effective employees, efficient, production. But in that same discussion, we're not talking about whole person well-being. We're not talking about SPIRE check-ins. We're not talking about whole person philosophies and personal philosophies about self-preservation. And if we only focus on agile teams and more production and how to get the best out of each employee, all that leads us to burnout. And I think that's why during COVID, we saw, in my opinion, we went through the great resignation. They were burnt out, and we're just gonna have this cycle of burnout constantly if we do not refocus on what matters most, which is so contrary to popular belief of, it's selfish to think of self-preservation and to self-care. And self-care isn't just this, this warm, fuzzy feeling. It's vital. You cannot have overflow in your life unless you first fill up your first cup. And our first cup is ourselves. So, and that's in life, that's in parenting, that's in our workplace. We first have to take care of us so that we can overflow. And so I just think it's critical. So yeah, Jasmine, I'm all in for anything to do with happiness.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I thought you would be in the group as well, just because it fit perfectly. I want to ask you a question about your decision why you choose the Navy back in 2002. I know it's, like we are in the present, but maybe we talk a little bit about the Navy, because I love the Navy. Personally, I was like, if I can choose between Navy and Army, I never thought about Air Force. But like between Navy and Army, I definitely want to go to Navy, and for some reason, I just have the love for the Navy. So, yeah, what motivates you to join the Navy back in 2002?
Yeah, so for me, it was the adventure. It truly was the adventure. I've always loved school. I was a junior in high school when I had even thought about it, so it wasn't a lifelong dream. My parents in their generation had not. I didn't know anyone who was in the military, but my grandfather and his siblings and his brothers were drafted, but they never talked about it. It was nothing that was ever talked about. But for me, it was honestly, I wanted more. I was from a metropolitan area. To me, my goal was to go to college, and I wanted to live in New York City, and I never wanted children. It's funny how I always say we make plans and God laughs, right? But um but then I was like, you know what? I really want more. I really didn't want any debt from school. I saw the Navy, and I saw ships, and I saw ports, and I saw the uniforms, and I always was really into structure. Um, and I was like, you know what? I want to do it. And I always, and a part of me, I remember always, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, right? Born in the 80s, but grew up in the 90s, and I was definitely one of those TLC salt and pepper type of women. I was all about women's rights and women's independence, and I wanted to also was on my bucket list to be a firefighter. So if it was a female, was a male dominant thing, I wanted to prove it. I wanted to break the glass ceiling. So I also had a little rebel in me back then. So I did it. I joined the Navy. I remember it was actually only me and another girlfriend of mine named Pam. I won't give her a last name, but she ended up joining the Air Force. And we were the only ones in our graduating high school of almost 800 students that joined the military. And we both joined, and I was only joining for the 4-year commitment. I wanted to, get on a naval carrier, carrier and an aircraft carrier, and I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to join and go to college right away. And then when I joined, found out there's always caveats, right? found out I ended up joining a community called TAR, which Training and Administration for Reserves, which meant that I was predominantly going to be stationed, not like most active duty sailors you see on TVs that go to ships, but instead I was going to be the administration for reserve sailors, which meant that I could go to all 50 states. So where reserve centers are, and our primary mission is to support the reserves, which augment active duty. And so when I was in A school, which was Meridian, Mississippi, they told me my first duty station was going to be Springfield, Missouri. Actually, they said Springfield, and I didn't hear Missouri. And I was like, "You're sending me back home?" Because there's Springfield, Massachusetts. And they were like, "No, Springfield, Missouri." I was like, "What's the Navy doing in Springfield, Missouri?" And I was like, little old me from Massachusetts, Northeast metropolitan area, sending me to Missouri, the South. So I was so scared, but it ended up being such an awesome duty station with some amazing leaders. I was that first duty station. I felt like, I had done really well. I had promoted. I had gone from E1 to E5 at that first duty station. So I had done really well for myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm not done. Oh, the rebel in me. I bought a motorcycle. And so, right. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like this paycheck. I was in school. I hadn't finished my bachelor's. And I was like, you know what? I want more. The Navy had so many opportunities. And I said, I want to be an officer. And so I went on to be stationed in Spokane, Washington, and again, kept promoting and just loved it. From there, went to Hawaii, went back to Memphis, then went to Naples, Italy, then went back to Washington in a different location, and then to Virginia, and then now here. And it has just, and I keep saying, there have been a couple times where I've thought about it. Actually, there's been a period where I got out of the Navy, went reserves, and then came back to go back in for a 2-year period. But there have been times where I keep saying, I'm going to live for the moment, take each career, each duty station for what it is, and I will stay in the Navy while it's still fun, while it still works for me and my family. 22 years later, we're still in, and I still find it fun and challenging.
Wow, I cannot believe you have been in the Navy for 22 years. It is just seemed like you had joined recently. You look so
Yeah.
young.
Thank you. You're a sweetheart, Jasmine.
So you mentioned about, sailor and officer. So my next question would be, what was the transition like from being an enlisted sailor to becoming a commissioned human resource officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the obvious difference for most things is that an enlisted sailor, officers are saluted, enlisted sailors are not, from the contrary. But honestly, in today's Navy, and another big difference used to be is that officers held degrees. In today's Navy, we have some outstanding, exceptional sailors. Most carry degrees. Most senior enlisted sailors have masters and PhDs. And for me, I decided I wanted to really pursue a commissioning because I wanted to get to a point in my career where I wasn't just making suggestions and recommendations for decisions. I wanted to be the one making decisions, and not in a controlling sense, but I wanted to have more impact on my sailors' lives, to write, to me, fair and equitable performance reports that really gave them an up to be able to get a commissioning, to be able to get into programs, and just to really have more say in what happens in those things. And again, it sounds like as I'm saying, it sounds very power hungry. And it can be looked at like that, but really it was, where can I have the most impact? And I felt like as an enlisted sailor, I made it to a chief petty officer, which is a very respected rank in the enlisted community. And it is. And actually, when I went from chief to ensign, which is an O1, it's funny because I was like, I was more respected as a chief petty officer when I walked in a room than I was as an ensign. But as anything goes, because a chief usually is, they're known as technical experts in their fields. And then I came in as an ensign, and because I was prior, most ensigns usually are anywhere between 1 and 2 years in the Navy. And of course, at that point, I had 12 years in. And so it was very humbling too. Again, I remember reading the book, you don't need a title to be a leader, and reminding myself, but remembering why I wanted to be an officer. I really wanted to be an officer to take care of sailors, to take care of enlisted sailors, to really be able to make a bigger impact and be able to impact policy. And now that I'm a human resource officer, I do quite a lot of that. I have a passion for pay, and making sure sailors and families are paid in an expeditious manner, in a compassionate manner, and that they have a voice. And I feel like in the Navy, over the last probably 5 years, I've finally got to a point where I can do that and I can advocate for them in a way like that. And it's been very rewarding.
Wow, such a journey. It seemed like, Channell do is so easy, flawlessly. It's just because she an expert. That's why it seems so easy. Uh, and then I saw Ben have been coming a lot for you and Nelly, and also we have Teresa in Facebook on Facebook. She watching you right now as well. She was like, absolutely, we must take care of ourselves first. And then Ben was like, you would be a great recruiter. Recruit. But thank you for all of the work that you do for, the Navy and for all of the sailors. I want to talk a little bit more about SPIRE, because you mentioned about SPIRE model and, you apply that SPIRE model in your family daily life. But I remember you mentioned that. I don't know if you mentioned that, but my question would be, how do you implement the principle of SPIRE in your family's daily life, also at your workplace? Because you mentioned that you now have the capacity to like just protect and also like uplifting other seller and all the young worker and the newer generation. So how do you implement the principle of SPIRE? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Jasmine, it's so, SPIRE is so in depth, right? I remember when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, SPIRE. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. Yes. And then when we went into the overarching principles and, the two whole being principles, and then went into each of the SPIRE elements have two, principles within. And so, but they're all like everything else, it's all interconnected, right? So at home at home and at work, it's really the same, because it's so basic of, one is slow down and mindfulness. I remember one of the very first 30-day challenges I did was to not multitask. Oh my goodness. Was I a chronic multitasker? And still I fall into that, right? And I have to do like a gut check to myself. But oh my goodness, I was a chronic. If you would have told me, like, I remember, and I know, I think most of us remember this, but when Tao had done the lecture and said that, multitasking is the amount of IQ that is dropped when you multitask is worse than smoking a marijuana joint. And I was like, what? I think I'm and to me, I'm like, I thought I was more effective when I multitask, because I get more done at once, but I'm not doing it well, right? So one of the first challenges I did was to put my cell phone down when I went home. And really, and at work, and to put myself, because this cell phone is such a leash. It's such a leash, right? And even though it can be so good, but it can be such a leash. And so now, in post-COVID, with Teams and Microsoft 360 and Zoom and everything we have, the phone, it used to be just email and chat, but the phone really is a main tool to get in touch with people, even at work. People will text from the next office because we're constantly like floating, and now we telework more, right? So at work, I really try to not have my phone. You know, if I'm going to be in a meeting or if I'm going to be having a conversation with someone, I put the phone to the side. I don't, I put the email, I pull my military ID card out of my computer so my computer goes black. So I'm really giving someone my undivided attention. And the same at home. I found that when I was doing that I'm like, my kids don't mind if I'm playing with them, but they really do. They really do. My 6-year-old used to, when I would pay attention, she'd put her hands on my face and be like, "Mommy, do you hear me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I hear you loud and clear." And that was like when I was still, but now it's, of course, mindfulness practices, whether it's just like, let's stop multitasking, let's, you know, do breathing exercise, let's do meditation, let's just be appreciative of what is going on and pay attention to our surroundings. After we do it and practice it, it becomes a ritual for us. But I remember those first couple months, my babies were like, "Are you paying attention?" I'm like, "Stop it." "Yes, I am." Um, but so that's probably the biggest thing is just mindfulness. And right away when we were I remember our very first final I did, how to find purpose in the mundane. And I have found that I've constantly gone back to purpose, which is, falls under the spiritual aspect. And if you would have asked me, prior to being on this journey, what does spiritual mean? I would have related it 100% to religion, 100%. And now I wouldn't, I mean, by all means, it does fall into that aspect. Religion does fall into that spiritual, but I also think it can fall into relational kind of, but it does, but hands down, it is purposeful. It's having meaning and purpose in your life. And I just was stuck at that first spiritual principle. And I have found that even with my kids, just making sure they have purpose, know what they're doing, finding purpose in them. And yeah, I know you're doing the dishes. I know but this is our home and we're doing it, and why we're doing it and why we have the honor to do it. And that even goes back to like stoicism, like, right? The opportunity is found in the journey, right? The challenge, it's not, I'm gonna get Giovanni, I don't want to misquote him, but nothing happens to you, it happens for you. Giovanni's famous quote, but it's so true, and I think when we're able to find purpose in what we're doing and purpose in the mundane, in the everyday, it really helps us to really find happiness and being a state of happiness. And then sharing with others that happiness is not a destination, which is something that is just a lie, right? It's not the truth. People are looking for happiness as a destination, and it's a way of life. It's a way of being. So I really, for the most part, I really stick with that SPIRE. And then probably the next biggest thing I hit on is emotions. And I think I live there a lot because I was in denial, because I've always been a very bubbly and positive, cup half full person all my life, even as a child, and as an adult. So I was like, oh, I got my emotions are in check. I'm a positive person. I'm not down. That's just people are, no. And I remember telling us that first semester that this course was going to be more on self-reflection and reflection than anything. And I was like, yeah, not me, not there. I got that. And emotions were my biggest. They turned my world. You're laughing, Jasmine, because I know you probably can, right? But they turned my world upside down. And I'm a visual learner. So I remember when Spal had the picture of the spigot, the water pipe, and it showed how our emotions all go through the same pipe, and our emotions are both good and bad go through the same. And when you suppress your bad, which I was doing by always being that positive, upbeat person, I was not dealing with negative emotions, and they could just be someone irritating me. Doesn't mean I needed to spout back. I still would never do that. But I did need to accept what was going on, accept that I was irritated, accept it and let it go and let it flow. And because I wasn't doing that, I was, causing that jam in my pipe and really not able to allow my good emotions to truly flow and elevate and outpour and just really experience them at the level I feel like I do now. And now I would say like the emotional part has been like, now when I go through challenges, and we all go through challenges, right? And I think that was another key thing, and I try to remind people of is, again, with happiness not being a destination, like it is literally this life, we will have challenges. And I always say challenges, we're in three things are happening. We're either about to head into a challenge, we just came out of a challenge, or we're in a challenge, right? Or going through, or we can call a challenge a mountain or an obstacle, or however we want to frame that, but they're just going to keep coming. That's life, right? And it's not, and I have found that now that I really do SPIRE check-ins, and I really do allow my emotions to flow, and I really do, and that's probably what I meditate on the most, because I know that is what I'm challenged with the most. That now I am able to really experience highs in my life like I have never before. So, like recently, I've gone through a few challenging obstacles in my life. And even though they've been some low spots in my life, I have never been more spiritually healthy and emotionally healthy than I have been going through them. And I think it's because, I don't think, I know it's because of this journey and because of SPIRE check-ins and meditation and just focusing on whole person well-being, specifically with my emotions.
Wow, beautiful journey. And
Thank
lately we have talked about emotion a lot, just because right now Ben is also learning and helping, Vietnamese student as well, who learn in the certificate program and also in the master program. That's why I got the chance to relearn all of the lecture. And this week we are talking about emotion. And this is exactly what we are talking this week.
you.
Talking about, sometimes people suppress their emotion and they don't want to look in, like the negative side. But then other time people always talk about the negative side and they don't want to move to the positive side. So we will face with people who choose sides
Yeah.
very much. And I'm so glad that you remind me a lot of like a lot of coach from Thailand, but I don't remember, the pew, like the pilot, the water
Yep.
pilot. I don't remember that, but you remind me that. And then you remind me of like the spy model that Tower say that the spy model shooting from the route. That's really lovely too. It's symbol to like the really simple image that the minute that you talk about that, I literally had the image of the spout come up from the ground.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. um so you got a lot of point there that I want to ask you, that you talk about like finding purpose in everyday life.
Yeah.
Is that how you find purpose in every task, like every day that you do? Like meditation is one of the way. Like, have you learn about meditation before this course, or do you learn and apply meditation during the time that you learn, MA in happiness?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. So again, that first semester, I felt it was a whim, and I felt out of place because there were so many people who I had never even heard of HSA. I had heard of Talvin Shar, but I never read any of his books. And so I felt so unprepared of the other students. I mean, we had classmates that were, um, had been meditating for years, had been part of positive psychology research for years, and Chinese medicine, just everything. And I just was like, there was a part of me that I had to fight, just not feeling adequate enough that first semester and really having belief in myself. And Enrique really helped kind of motivate me, like, nope, you're here for a reason, you got this. But no, I had never meditated, other than I'd been to probably like 2 or 3 yoga classes before, but never had meditated, never really, but that was such a game changer. And I really appreciated how Tal that first semester made it part of our homework assignment, those first 9 weeks. And it really helped kind of show me how important it is, and just even breath work. And it has even changed my spiritual life on, with in Christianity, like just reading the Bible, like learning to just meditate on a verse has just elevated just the depths that I'm able to just really concentrate and flow on a particular passion, and really be able to hear and get out. And the same with any poetry I'm reading, or any piece of our favorite philosophers, right? And just really meditating on works it has changed my life. But yeah, but no, I had never previously, but I will never not do it ever again. I can't.
Oh, that's beautiful. We we are in a like a community with people who love meditate, and I love the fact that you mentioned about meditating in the word. That even when you read the Bible, because I know you have the love for Jesus, and I know, do you pray every day?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. And so do you also teach your daughters to meditating in verb, in like wording every time that you pray with her?
Yeah, so yes and no. I will try to kind of meet them at their level. There are a lot of like kids meditations on YouTube. They'll walk in, I'm meditating, one will sit. My 13-year-old has the hardest time meditating. She's like, this is too long. My 6-year-old actually does the best. It's crazy. But I usually will try when they're ready, and we'll finish up wherever they walked in where I was meditating. And I'll put on a meditation for them, a kid's one that's talking about emotions, or talking about rainbows, or something they can visit. It's usually a visual, and they'll like it, because I think for them it's really teaching the practice. And as far as our prayer life, we do pray in the evenings. And probably the most time that they will pray aloud is during grace. We just always try to have gratitude for our food, and God's then the provisions we have. But yeah.
That's so nice. Because in meditating that I learned as well, in meditation, we don't just like sit and meditate, like crossing our leg and close our eye. That's called meditation. We also like meditate while we are walking, like be more mindfulness while we are walking or
Yes.
talking or like reading. That's exactly what you are doing right now. That's
Yeah.
really powerful. And I
Yeah.
saw that Ben have a question for you. Do you have any realization of the connection between religion and happiness studies?
Yeah. So Ben, that's a great question. And I'm going to go a little sideways for a second on it. So one of the big things I also found, the military is very open now about talking about religion. It isn't so taboo. But my first probably 10 years in the Navy, when I come across people that really were having problems with peace in their life and joy, I found it very difficult to share about peace and joy without sharing Jesus. And a lot of times that can push someone away. And I realize that, and I know that. So one of my other goals of this program was, how can I share joy and peace with others without bringing up God, without pushing them away and closing them off, and by using that. And so yes, right away, like I can tell you, when we read Religion for Atheists, I was like, I'm not reading this. And I remember I think we bought the book. Mind blowing, opened my mind, realized I was so closed. And then just reading like Buddhism, like there is such a connection between religion, and not just Christianity, all religions and happiness studies. The foundations of almost every religion and happiness studies are all the same. They all really are talking about your purposeful living, physical well-being, whether it's your mind, what you're consuming, how you're taking care of yourself, exercise and getting out in nature, intellectual, every single one is talking about reading and books and the Bible, and you know, relational. There's not one that is not talking about the importance of and then emotional well-being, whether it be, I can tell you, I was very, I used to always think, to honor God was to be positive, to not talk about, if something's bothering me. But as I look deeper and really get into read the word, yes, it does say, if someone asks, if you're fasting, you should have a smile on your face. Someone shouldn't be like, oh, woe is me, I'm fasting. You're doing it for God. But at the same time, you should be able to check in, ask for, acknowledge your emotions, deal with your emotion, allow them to flow. Yes, don't let them anger you, don't react to them, but to deal with them. And so, yeah, there's a connection, I believe, to every religion. And honestly, most of the philosophers, I don't know how many times in this, I don't think there was a week that went by that the Bible wasn't referenced, or there wasn't a week where stoicism wasn't, or Buddhism, like, yeah, such a connection.
Yes, I also found a lot of connection. Until this day, I feel like, after learning midway, just like by the second semester, I already feel happy and happier. And I'm looking forward for the class where I can listen to everybody discussion and also like share my, like insider to everybody. But I don't know
Yeah.
like what we will get from everyone. And well, we are here, not just, Channell, not just me. So if you have any question for Channell, you can, feel free to raise your hand or also, write it in the chat box. And I will be happy to read your chat, your question for you. And I saw that a few of us is watching on you from Facebook. So if you have any question, you can also write a question on Facebook, and I will be happy to read your comment for you. Okay, so back to the other question. So we talked a lot about, like how you have your work because you are now a human resource officer. So how do you envision using what you have learned in this program to further your career and personal goals?
Yeah. So my goal in the Navy is or not even, so right now, it's not even a goal because each season changes. But right now, I have on my heart to really focus on burnout. I think right now for our leaders in the Navy, senior leader, enlisted, and officer, there is a mass burnout going on, and recognizing it. And I have already reached out to my community, because in my current position, I do a lot of trainings on just community health and relations. So I've even talked about, just even for other human resource officers, adding in, we do a yearly seminar where we get together to make sure we are staying up with our HR and our PHR certifications, and to add in WholebBeing well-being practices and do breakouts and workshops, and then locally doing them as well. So my focus right now in the military would be not just on, but that would be most helpful, has been burnout.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like you're going to do a great support and also, help them a lot. If you could do whatever you plan to do and or you already doing that. So I feel like the world needs your help, not just the military. But Ben have another question for you. How can we implement happiness study in government and or military, and what impacts can it create?
Yeah, Ben, with that question right away, what pops in my head is interconnectedness. I think it is so important for our government and our leaders to just understand the impacts of interconnectedness. I know we were given the opportunity in class to kind of write what we do to even reform healthcare, to reform the school system. And And I just think sometimes in American politics, there is unity. There's not unity there, right? So I would definitely think that the SPIRE element's definitely relational. And then the whole being principle number 2, that everything's interconnected. Like there's one thing I heard actually at church a couple weeks ago was, only really in the Western part of the world do you hear people say, I am a Democrat, I am a Republican. But in other parts of the world, you hear people say, I voted this, I voted that. But here in the US, we identify with it. And I think that by identifying with our political parties is causing such a ununified nation. And I think overall that's affecting our happiness. I think if we can get back to understanding that everything we do, everything we say, every action we take is truly interconnected, in that, we can, the beautiful, the importance of being a beautiful enemy, but also the same thing about the importance of having friction. If we all just agreed on the same thing, we would never grow. So it's important that we have different opinions in political parties. But I think just if we are to focus on purpose, what the interconnectedness of everything we're doing, how important our relationships and our unity is. And then I think emotional well-being, right? If we really were, if our government truly tapped in, like I have tapped in and will continue to tap into just emotional well-being, we won't be so reactive. So when we won't be so insulted to just spar back at one another and have such divides. But I think happiness studies and just have an awareness that happiness is something that we all can choose and can attain. And all we got to do is slow down, be mindful, be intentional. It's there. And I think that just will, like I said, overflow, right? It will overflow in every part of our nation.
Wow, I loved it. Love the fact that you mentioned about beautiful enemy. Um, I learned that we have to appreciate our beautiful enemy and also love our beautiful enemy. But without them, we would never grow.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I got another question from another one about your daughter.
Oh,
They just asked that what strategy do you use to help your daughters adapt to frequent relocation? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. It changes each time, right? Because each time we move has been different ages. And even though like this last time I've moved with a 13-year-old, because I've had stepchildren and been married, am currently married, but going through a divorce. But so but I've just found that everyone's different. Each child is totally different. And so I can't, just because it worked for one didn't work. But just being patient and understanding. And I remember going through, and Jasmine, maybe you can help me remember, but I remember there was a text that we read and it was about introverts. And it really helped me to realize, because I always classified myself as an extrovert. I always thought it was a one or the other, the yin or the yang. There wasn't, and I realized I very much had introverted I characteristics and like, even though I love being around, but I need to, and the importance of, right, and this kind of goes back to burnout, right? The importance of rejuvenating and bouncing back and being able to know yourself, know when you need to take a break, and how to refuel yourself. And so my kids are no different than that. And so it's just being patient, allowing them to deal with the emotions, understanding that they're not adults, the way that they're dealing with it, and to just listen. A lot of the times one thing I say to my 13-year-old over and over and over is, appreciate the good and the good will appreciate you. Professor Tal, that's one of his, to me, that is one of his key words of advice. And I say that to my daughter. At the end of the school year, she said to me, yes, mom, not everybody can just appreciate it like you, and with the sassiness in her neck too, right? And I said, look, Belle, I get it, but know that when you, what I mean, and she was in class, and it's difficult. She's seventh grade. Girls are mean, and she's in the seventh grade, and she moved mid-year, right? And I said, Bella, what you're going through and what happened today, it stinks, or this teacher, or whatever. And I said, and I'm not saying what happened to you or what you're going through is not important, that it didn't hurt and that your perspective isn't there. All I'm saying is when you walk in that room and you know that you can already see things are going bad, I'm just saying, instead of having the eyes that are waiting for the inevitable bad to happen, because you've been there, done that, you've got the t-shirt, but instead point your eyes to searching out the good, whether it's another student complimenting someone, whether it's someone that opens a door, whether it's someone that drops something and picks it up, or if it's someone that just shares a smile with someone. Pay attention to that good and recognize it and be grateful for it. And as you do that, it will slowly, you'll notice it more and more. And that's what I mean by appreciating it. And she goes, okay. And I remember getting her on Amazon a happy potato. And she's away right now and for the summer, and she's got a happy potato on her vanity. And I'm like, hey, I can't be there reminding you, but there's this little it's called a positive potato. There's your positive potato, and nobody's telling you. And it's just that but sometimes, our kids look at us when we talk so positive to them that we don't understand, we don't get it. And I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not living it, but I am empathizing with you. But all I'm asking you to do is not ignore that it's happening, but look for the other good that's happening. And I think that helps. And just being patient with them to take the time, and also understanding that they didn't make this choice to move. So letting them go through, and I love the movie Inside Out. I think that was a great movie, right? That first one where she moved. And I think it goes through letting them go through those emotions, letting them be upset, letting them put a wall up, because my kids do that too. I'm like, you're not making friends. I'm not ready. Okay. Okay. And just being there when they're ready to talk. And then just understanding that as parents, this too shall pass, because it does. And for me, this last move, it was like month 4. Month 4 is when the walls came down and it worked. And the next move, it may take 8 months. But just being that positive potato in my own head and saying this too shall pass. Just be patient, be there, be understanding. And I fail. Please don't hear what I'm not saying. I do not always get it right. I do not, but just some lessons I've learned, and I'm still learning, and I will continue to learn through it.
I agree with you. Beautiful. Feel like all kids, even me, when I was younger, I was difficult to deal with.
Me
So
too.
lately I have read extraordinary teacher, or like student and ordinary teacher or something from
Yes.
Marvel Collins. Now I have time to read the book. It's not like I have read all the book that Tao suggests. But now I have time to read. And in one of the sentence, she mentioned that all of the kids, they thought we was born adult.
Yeah.
That's why we have to explain to them that we was one a child just like them as well. So by letting them know that and guide them to where they at, it would they feel the connection, and therefore they would build that trust with us. So the minute that I read that statement, I was with my baby because I read that book to her, and I look at her and I was like, baby, mommy used to be like her, like used to be small like you, and now mommy is grown up like this. You know, she was like, she have no idea, but I'm sure she's very smart. And I also love the fact that your first daughter, her name is Bella as well.
Yeah. Yes.
That's cute.
Yep. My little Bella.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jasmine, when you said that, it goes back to, and that goes back to what we learned, right? Storytelling. And the
Mm.
best way for our kids, and this is reminding me that I even need to do this more, but because they're just like, you've always been like this, you've never had problems, you don't get it, is to tell stories about how we dealt with challenges, not as adults, but as kids, to show them we were kids, to talk about the mistakes we made as kids, because I think they sometimes think we were perfect too, right? Like, oh, you never got in trouble as a kid. Sure, but you can believe that if you'd like, right? But I think storytelling, right? Storytelling is so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, that's great. That wonderful storytelling. I love that too. And also like reframing.
Oh, yeah.
I recently learned that again from Ben and other students. Like, I often share with other people, don't think this MA program is easy. It's easy, but it's not easy because we have lot of homework, and then the amount of thing that we had, paper and research and movie and book to read.
Yeah.
We have to take it serious, otherwise we don't understand why we are learning this.
Yep. Absolutely.
So there's another question for you. How do you manage balancing a demanding career in the Navy with raising three daughters?
Yeah, great question. I fall down and I get back up. Right? Yeah, the biggest thing and I've shared this in class many times, is the biggest thing I deal with, and I still deal, but I think I've really overcome it for the most part, is mom guilt. The mom guilt I have from just the time I spend going to work. There's seasons where I wish I didn't have to, or the times I miss things, or the times I've got to take calls, or just, and kids, oh my goodness, they play on that. They know how to make you feel guilty. But just like you said, Jasmine, reframing, I remember when we were doing the SPIRE retreat, and realizing I needed to get walks in. I needed to work out. I needed to make it a daily routine. And I hadn't made it because I was working such long hours in Virginia, that if I added working out, then that added another hour I had to leave home earlier, or an hour I came home later. And I felt like I was taking that from my kids already. So I wasn't taking care of myself. And when I reframed it, and I actually talked to my 6-year-old and said, hey, mom, and I would even invite them, and I would say, hey, mommy is going for a walk, and mommy's doing this because this is going to make it so mommy remains healthy and mommy can live longer, and I can meet your kids and maybe even their kids. And then I said that a couple times to her, and I even believed it, right? Because we got to tell it to ourselves, because that mom guilt kept coming back. And then I remember probably after a month, she goes, oh, mom, are you going out walking so you can live long? Yeah. And I was like, exactly, Penelope. And then now, of course, after a time, it took about good 3 months, but now I don't feel bad. And actually tonight they were like, mom, what are you doing? And I was like, hey, I'm gonna hang out with my friends online. They're like, are you back in school? I'm like, no, but I'm hanging out with my homies. And they're like, okay, when you're done, can we go work out? Can we go do a night walk together so we can live long? So like, just including them. But I would say it's just like anything in life. A lot of times we look at it and we're like, hey, there's such a challenge when you're balancing, full-time employment and motherhood. But I think it is just as challenging. I spent 2 years home with my kids, and I found that to be even more challenging. I felt like that was the hardest job in the world, because I felt like I had a plan every day. I only got one thing done. I felt defeated at the end of the day. I felt like I made more mistakes than anything. And so now that I go to work and I feel like I get lots of kudos, or I can see things done, and then I get home and I consider that my primary job. But so I think that in life we juggle, whether it's, being good spouses, being good friends, being good daughters, being good mothers, being good employees. There's always a balance. And I think there's seasons and times where we've got to give a little bit more, but I think it's so important that in life we make sure that if there's a season where I got to give more to my job, or more to my spouse, or more to my kids, then as soon as that season, you give it back, and trying to balance it the best. At the same time, back to quoting Tao, giving yourself permission to be human. For me, that has been key giving myself permission to be human as a mom, making mistakes, as a wife, making mistakes, as an employee, making mistakes, as a friend, making mistakes, and giving myself permission even for my expectations for myself, that I'm human, I'll make mistakes, get up, shake it off, do your best, Channell, and apologize. As a mom, I apologize a lot to my kids, and they're always so forgiving, and I think that's important for them and for me.
Beautiful. I learned a lot from you actually from parenting, especially like including all the kids in your daily life or um especially inspiring them to work out,
Yeah.
you know? I have to learn that from you. This for the physical well-being. We have to including the kid. That's why I thought to myself that I play 7-minute workout for my daughter to watch, and along with all of the video that she can watch, all of the song, baby song, and she actually loved watching that as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that I could it would be lucky for me to do that. But now listen to you by learning from you. I'm sure I would add all of the physical well-being into my daughter life. Planning it right now.
Absolutely. Oh, my girls, they love those 7-minute workouts.
Should
They
they do
love
that?
those HIIT workouts. They'll do them in the house with me too.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like how do you invite them to do the 7-minute workout with you?
Usually I'll just put it on the screen, and kids, well, you will soon know. As soon as little Bella Luna starts walking, she's gonna be attached to you. And anytime you want a break or some space, that's when she's not gonna give it to you. And so, I've learned to just invite them, hey, get your shoes on or get a mat. And sometimes they'll just do a minute and then they just want to try it and then they'll walk away. And sometimes they'll stay the whole time. And then sometimes they'll come at the end, and then I'll go on YouTube and find something a little easier for them and just do a 3-minute one, and just including them. They feel included. They don't give you as much of resistance, and they're learning too as well.
That's true. Yeah. I told her all the time, I was like, I always want to have a girlfriend, and that's good that God give me,
Yeah.
a girlfriend and a daughter at the same time. So we just talked to her about that today. Ben was like, well, wait until Bella Luna can go shopping with mommy and she can pick out the clothes for you.
Oh yeah, little girls are the best for that. They are.
Mm, yeah. Well, so we talk a lot about, what we learn and also books. You mentioned about books. Have you read all of the book that Thao mentioned, and how do you incorporate what you learn from books
Oh
and
my,
other resource?
yes. Wow, Jasmine, when you say that, I'm pulling up my OneNote. There must be, because every time he referenced a book, I literally took a screenshot, and there has to be a good 70 books on here. No ifs, ands, or buts. One, I really love David Schnark's Passionate Marriage, learning about gridlock. And I think that's important just in any relationship, whether it's romantic or even just platonic. That has really just helped me, that everyone's going to go through that, right? I love The Power of Nice, by Linda Kaplan. And that was great, a great book. Let me see another good one. Oh, actually, I'm not even going to take Power. I was going to say The Power of Full Engagement. It's literally on my desk, but I have not, I cannot claim that. Strength books, I love that. The book I am reading right now that I absolutely love. Oh, before I tell that one, The Joy of Living by Yongey Rinpoche. Love that book. But the book I'm in right now is called oh, I just went blank. Just
I
went blank.
I think the book that you are
Ruthless.
in, yeah, the ruthless
Yep.
elimination of
Oh,
hurry.
oh my goodness. And actually, and I didn't even realize it, this wasn't recommended by Tal, but Tal's actually mentioned in the intro of that book. Um, but it's a book written by a Christian pastor of a mega church that hit burnout, right? And it was gifted to me and a group of folks, and it was just about getting rid of busy from your life. And so it talks about like how do we all, and I know I can definitely relate, and I think most of us can, we go through life, whether it's parenting, whether it's work, whether it's just in friendships and relationships where we're like, where we get so busy, where we lose ourselves and we're like, we look back or we hear ourselves fuss at our kids or get upset about something, or just we're so busy and we're like, I don't like who I've become. Or maybe it's not even I don't like who I've become. It's am I who I want to be right now? And in this book, this particular pastor, Mark Homer, he was pastoring a mega church. By every word success, he was the epitome of. His church had grown by 1,000 people for 7 years in a row. He was a world-renowned speaker, speaking engagements. His plate was full, great family, right? But he was just empty every day. At the end of the day, he was like Netflix binging, just exhausted, tired, and he goes in and he said to himself, he's like, I am preaching, I'm giving sermons about living a life of a fulfilled life, a life of peace and joy, and I myself am not living that. I am so burnt out, I'm so spent. Who am I becoming? And so he had asked the mentor, and the mentor's answer to him was an answer he had received from another mentor was, if you're questioning who you are, the one thing you have to do, it's not even like, let's go into SPIRE elements. It is, you must ruthlessly, with all you have, eliminate hurry in your life. Eliminate busyness, because what busy does is it just clouds our mind. It just makes us, it distracts us, right? It distracts us. It distracts us from what's important in life. It distracts us. It doesn't allow us to be mindful and to be intentional and to pay attention to what's going around. And so it gives a reference to Jesus. Like, Jesus was busy, but he was never in a hurry. And it further goes into like ways to like just give yourself a gut check. There's never a reason to speed. And now you say that to someone who likes fast cars and likes motorcycles, right? But there really is no reason. If you find yourself ever you shouldn't. If you're speeding, you're in a hurry. And then it also went to saying, like, ever think of when you're trying to leave the house and you're rushing yourself, your friend, your husband, your kids, your wife, and you're rushing out of the house. Are you showing fruits of the spirit of patience, kindness, goodness, joy? No, you're usually rushing, you're fussing, you're snapping at someone, your heart's, your anxieties. Well, then no, and for me, that is my goal right now. It is to just get rid of hurry in my life and just be even more intentional. Like, truly, like, I even found myself trying not to use the term with my kids. And they naturally have been, now that I'm paying attention, they're like, Mom, are we late? Are we late? Are we late? And I'm like, we're not using that word anymore. I'm like, I don't want to keep saying we're late. I don't want to, I'm just, you know what? I'll shift them 15 minutes earlier. And if the worst thing is we're late, me telling us we're late isn't really gonna help anything. We're still gonna be late. So just go with the flow. Yeah, so that has been a game changer for me. And I absolutely love that book. Yeah.
I love that as well, because I personally had been through that the situation where I often tell myself that I'm late, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. And then I got was late in frustration.
Absolutely.
That was when I'm, kind of like the first or the second semester that we was in the MA in happiness program as well. And then somehow, some way, I told myself that I should stop telling myself that I'm late. I should instead reframing it and say that I'm on time
Yes,
and even I'm early. And then
absolutely.
since then everything changed.
It
But
does. It's like you're giving yourself permission and you're just, yeah, Jasmine, that's so awesome.
that's so awesome. Thank you so much for suggesting that book. Not to not to everybody in the Zoom, but also, people will rewatch this video. And they could be able to read that book, or at least, have that seed in them,
Yeah.
that they can find a book randomly, maybe.
Yep.
Um, I have another question for you. I have actually two more questions for you. But the time is up, so, and two question is short. So the next question would be, do you have any advice for others looking to balance demanding career, family life, and personal well-being? I think your internet is kind of close, uh, stop right now. Is it just me, or my end, or Chanel, or still speaking, talking?
Channell froze.
I think she's frozen. She got frozen. Well, we can wait a little bit. I feel like this energy is uplifting and really high. That's why her internet is frozen. And maybe she got out and she will join again. Who knows? Oh yeah, I saw her.
Sorry about that.
Hello.
Lost you. Sorry.
It's okay. I was like, your energy is so high up. That's why the internet is frozen.
It's like we can't keep up. Sorry. But I would say, just do a gut check, a heart check. Back to quoting Giovanni, right? Just filter everything through your heart. If your intentions are good, then give yourself permission to be human. Our failures and our mistakes is what makes us stronger. If we were to just get it right every day, one, it would be boring, even though we could never imagine it boring. But two, just give yourself permission. Know you're give yourself kudos. One of the biggest things I changed in this study, because I am a type A personality, a list maker, is I still make a list. I mean, there are things that have to get done, but more than a list, I have a a done list. So done. And so I keep track of everything I do in a separate book, and that is on my desk. And like now my to-do list is more stickies, where before that used to be my to-do list and what were my top 3, and now it's a done list, so that at the end of the day I'm able to look and say, wow, I got yeah, I didn't get that other stuff, and I don't even pay attention to what the other really wasn't, but I see, wow, I was able to get that, and I was able to reach that person. And yep, I didn't get that Excel doc updated, but I was able to stop and spend an hour with that sailor and really feed into them and sow seeds of life into them, and that means more than. And then I end each day now not feeling unaccomplished in that I've got more to do, but just like that to done list. And I think it's same with everything we do in our life. Pay attention to what you are doing well, give yourself permission to be human, and smile.
Well, that's powerful and beautiful at the same time. I lately have told everybody the same thing, like when we are being in presence, we don't know who we can become.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so this is the final question for you. If you can be the host, like, stay in my, be the host, just become a host, who would you want to interview in this, in our MA program?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. Like, look, I so would say you, but I know you were, that was what was said 2 weeks ago. So I was,
You can interview me. You can interview me, and also Leslie can interview me. That's
yes,
fine.
yes. Let's see. I think I'd want to interview Brad. Brad is a Navy Reserve SEAL. Every time I would connect with Brad I never was in a hack group with him, but he just is a ray of positivity, and I just have so much respect for him and his profession. And he is also just such a devoted dad and husband. I think Ben would be awesome to interview.
I love that. I also love the fact that you mentioned about Rad, because I have never been in the same hack group with him, nor uh the room, it's just discussion group. But
Oh yeah.
But I think Ben had been in the same hat group with Brad. So Brad did not know who Tao was when he signed up for the MA program.
Yeah. Look, we're all, and I am so bad with last names. Like I'm trying to remember Brad's last name.
I'm not even good at name
Yeah,
and
but
last name.
Brad's the only Brad. So,
Yeah, but
and there
that's
were
great.
not many guys in our group, right?
Right.
I think, I have so much respect for, Ben and all the rest of the men, because what a bold leap of faith to jump into a cohort where we start off with 100 and I think we had 10 men, if that when we started and
You
then
know,
dropped. I think
right
we
now I can only remember Ben, Giovanni, Jim. You mentioned about Brad. I remember. Now I start remember, but I forgot the name. I'm
yeah.
so
Yeah, we've got there are some we've got the men have been they're awesome. But they're bold. They're like I think I made a leap of faith, but we had the power of numbers of women and understanding and I don't think it was outside the norm for us, but I think for our men, it most definitely was outside the norm. They were in touch with their soft side, as our society would say, right? So I think it is just I was totally empowered by them and their energy, and I have such respect for them. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And I would love to have an interview with one of our guy as well. um, well, the reason why I asked this question because I want you to become a host, and then also other friend and MA student can become the host as well.
Oh,
So
that would be so much fun. Sign
yes.
me up.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Because sometimes if I ask that question, people want to do it, but they were like, no, 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 you should be the host because I cannot do better than you. And I was like, absolutely, you can do it better than me. It's not like I would just, call you out and say, "Hey, you become the host and I won't be there." So I will become the MC who introduce, like Channell as a host, and then I have another guest.
Perfect.
So next week, actually next week, we will have Regini and Leslie will be host.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Regina is amazing. I mean, honestly, there's not a name that you could say out of our cohort that they're not amazing. It's just what an absolute honor this journey is. And it is just that, a journey. I will never get off of this. And I love each and every one of you. And Jasmine, you are just such a stellar host. And I think why people are a little challenged is you just have this grace about you and this welcoming environment, and you just put us at peace and ease. And so everyone's like, can I fit in Jasmine's shoes? So yeah. But you just do it so effortlessly. So thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you give me so much support. I'm doing this because I love doing this because it's kind of somehow it's my dream.
Yeah.
But in the past I wasn't have this confidence. I did not have this confidence. And it took me a year, like it took me years to learn English because English is my second language. And also it took me years to learn Vietnamese because I'm changing from Vietnamese to English and English to Vietnamese, and now I have like a language barrier.
Yeah.
And somehow I just build that barrier for myself. But becoming a host and an MC, the MC is one of my passion, and somehow I just feel like I should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank
you're
you.
doing it amazing. But I empathize with you, right? And I think it's so powerful. Ben just has this natural nick, and he does it. And sometimes, as women and spouses, we can kind of be in the back, you know,
Mhm.
we're usually the support, and when it takes a boldness, and I know Ben's your cheerleader back there, and I'm sure he's always been telling you to do it, but we sometimes we put this ceiling on us that we're support, and that's all. So I think it's absolutely wonderful that you're stepping outside that box. You're following your dreams. I know Ben's rooting you on. I'm rooting you on. You're fantastic. You've definitely got this amazingly gorgeous face for television and MC, and just this warm heart. So keep it up, Jasmine. I'm a huge fan. I'll be watching whatever you're MCing.
Thank you so much, Channell. And thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us and your insight on balancing a demanding career and family life and personal well-being are truly inspiring. And well, thank you once again. And I wish you and your family continue joy and success in your life. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Well, I will see you next time.
Yes. All right.
Until I can invite Brad or one of the candidates,
Yes.
I will let you know. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.